Kenny Deery joins me from Galway Chamber of Commerce. He's had a meeting indeed in Galway County Council, but has stepped out. Kenny, Phase 4, it's affecting publicans, and there's a good bit of sympathy for them today.
Good morning, Keith. Well, it's affecting many businesses, and I know the publicans have been out very loud and very strong from yesterday evening. And rightly so. You know, they've been forced closed for between 5 and 6 months, and the supports that are coming through, and that, you know, the July stimulus, there was a lot of conversation about what that was going to hold, but that has really no compensation for your business being closed for 5 to 6 months. And now we have, the month of August, where you're seen to be in peak season for visitors, and even with the domestic market, and they're gone for another few weeks. So I can understand hugely why they're animated, and we're coming out in the strongest way as well, saying that the supports that are there just aren't adequate to make up for this. But Keith, I'd just like to highlight, it's not just the pubs. We've many hotel operators this morning, their conference and banqueting people are going ringing couples, because many people were focusing on this, that if internal venues could hold 50 people, if that was moving to 100, then you'd have some hope of 200 on the trajectory. So there are many wedding couples, many people planning events, even corporate events and charity events that were on hold, and they were in a holding pattern to wait and see what's happening, that this morning are making tough decisions. You know, we've seen announcements which we welcome yesterday, the Arts Festival, and indeed next week there'll be more from Galway 2020, with programme of activities coming up for the next few months. But you're not going to be able to do much if you're an indoor venue, 50 people. By the time you've your crew and performers, you might have an audience of 30. So it just calls into question the whole viability of a whole range of stuff coming up over the next few months. And I think one of the bits that, and I know it's very difficult for government, they're operating on the figures that they're getting on a daily basis. They're looking at what's happening around the world. But I think at this stage we need to just call this and get an economic package together that actually backfills the hole that this has created, aside from the psychological and the mental health and all those other issues. But for many, like the 3,500 pubs, they have a very strong lobby. The restaurants equally are out strong, Keith, as well, looking at this curfew, which was unexpected in many ways, but that calling it at 11 at night means we're probably going to have to move to a bit of a cultural change of the time we go out for dinners, if it's a case restaurants are going to try and get 2 sittings in an evening, as well as all the cleaning and time down that they need in between. So there's a lot of people scratching their heads today figuring out how this is going to impact them.
Yeah, but what's also come out now, you were at a meeting in the County Council, so I know you didn't hear about what's come out from the VFI, from the Restaurant Association of Ireland, and from others, is that the government have lost a connection with rural Ireland. They seem to just be focusing Dublin side rather than the rest of the country. And there also seems to be a bit of an apathy there when it comes to the leadership, that we don't seem to have leadership now. And even somebody said there, Stephen Donnelly knows as much about health as but it's just popping on screen. Stephen Donnelly knows as much about health as a dog knows about a holiday. And the other 3 geniuses that are on the country with him as well. Like there's a lot of negative comments coming in about the current government.
There are, and you know, all those politicians, irrespective of their own experience, are surrounded by what you would hope are a cohort of advisors who have expertise in this space. But some decisions coming through, Keith, you do find it, you question and you think, God, if I was in that position, I wouldn't have done that. You know, at this stage, and I think not that I would ever be a proponent of the Healy-Rays, but Michael Healy-Ray had a very witty piece 2 weeks ago, I think, at this stage in the Dáil, and it was focusing on, you know, the notion of a bit of food and how, and he did it in as charismatic a way as they do, but it's a very real and sensible question when you're looking at it from rural Ireland. You're kind of saying, let's let everyone go on the same pattern. The guards are being visible in terms of turning up to premises. I know one other commentator mentioned a pub in Mayo. I was up at the weekend, and, you know, the guards are having presence in facilities, and they're clearing them. And I think we just need to see more enforcement of the rules that are there and try and take a common sense approach. But this whole area of, let's say, the curfew at 11, clearing restaurants and cleaning dining rooms, I think that sort of stuff, that's only playing with it's playing with the wrong angle on this. What we need is decision making, and whether people like it or hate it, make a decision and let's stick to that, and not be waiting in a holding pattern every few weeks, and bring out an economic package that actually compensates those businesses. Because the restart grant at this stage, even with the increasing levels of it, you know, it's tied to rates, but it's nowhere near adequate to cover the hole that has been created. The wage stimulus, when it was extended, we said, geez, that's great because it's extended to next year. But a whole range of legislation, Keith, was posted discreetly on the Revenue website a few days later last week, which actually has confused the dial. Now, government had to roll back on that after extensive lobbying from Chambers Ireland and other groups where, for example, proprietary directors were being left out of the continuing supports. So that sort of playing around on the edges and skirting with bits of legislation only confuses measures more and will get people into trouble because you'll claim something thinking you're entitled to it, and then when revenue audit you won't be. So what we're calling for at this stage is let's make decisions and call it for the next few months as opposed to this holding pattern. Because if you imagine you're a hotel, you have your conference and banqueting team, they're again re-ringing a whole cohort of people who have been deferred. This is, I'd say, the third time and fourth time some bookings have been moved forward, and it's the uncertainty it's creating at this stage. So I think rather than looking at a 3-week forecast, we need to take a 3-month thing, make a decision and support people adequately so that they're not left in the financial precariousness that some are. You know, today they were hoping that at least they'd have the month of August revenue and that will cover something whereby there's no additional income for many businesses, or you know the events aren't going to happen, but the supports haven't increased to take account of this. And one of the bits that my colleagues in the Chambers Network talked about, many of these businesses are viable but vulnerable, and they're dealing with something that's not of their making. The government has legislation they can't open, so then the government has the responsibility to make sure they stay viable, because otherwise, you know, this will be fraught with legal challenges for months and years to come.
All right. I think what we really want is to see confidence in the decisions that have been made.
Correct.
I think that's really what we need to see, is a little bit of confidence and a little bit of energy. And as you said, if you had the roadmap and said, look, it's going to be the 29th of September before you can open it, so be it. But there's just, again, the comment lines are just hopping this morning. Keith, I think the pubs should be allowed to open, providing that they keep the rules. All I heard this morning appears to be good in the owners and what they are doing. I'm sure they can arrange to fit it in and set times for people to come in. These people want to earn a living. I don't drink, so seldom in bars, apart from the great menus. And other calls just coming into that effect as well. Kenny, thanks for joining us today from Chief Executive of Galway Chamber of Commerce, joining us there.